morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Justin, and Sean. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, and happy Monday. How are you all? Quiet day, huh, Robin? Yo. It's V-Day. It's V-Day. Now, some people dislike, and this would be Black Monday for some people, and I totally, like, all the mood. I used to be that person. But I like to think that all of you deserve a little Valentine's, so, you know. Valentine's doesn't have to be about romance. Oh, more snow, huh? Peaceful. It got cold again here. So, I'm like, oh no, the groundhog was right. So here we are with our bust. And I think today... Anti-single people day. See, I don't think that's often, because I think, like, you know, I tell my mom happy Valentine's. Like, I think this, you know, just because commercialism wants to convince us that it's all about, you know, like being in love and stuff. I think we can co-opt Valentine's Day to just express our appreciation for the people around us. That's my take. I am an eternal optimist. I am aware of this fact. Oh, wow. 85 where you are. Funky War Shadow. So let's see. Yeah, I would still like a little more highlight on her. So that means, remember we did our cool swatch last time? Cool swatch. So let's mix our base color and then create a little bit of highlight. Get my, there we go, out of the way. Let's see here. Tan skin. I've just started keeping tan skin and Griffin Golden Brown together. Yeah, see, that's cool. We used to give carnations to friends, Lady Katara. Like, that was the accepted, like, you know, you could get your friends carnations. I think that is a cool thing. 52 degrees tomorrow for you, oh, wow. So it's going to be like a crazy temperature drop. Oh, War Shadow. Oof. Alrighty. What's our base ratio again? It is 2 drops of tan skin and 1 drop of Griffin Golden Brown, a fast palette color, which is extremely useful and also a great replacement for 9073, which was canceled. So we will get our 1, 2, 3, 4 drops of tan skin. 2 drops. Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Moms totally need more Valentine's Day love. I'm with you there. I should have thought of that. But I'm going to send my mom flowers for her birthday. She loves flowers and Dad never gets her any. So, you know. Although apparently last time I sent her flowers, Dad's response was, well, do I get flowers? Which is funny. And I should tell him, well, maybe if you get mom flowers every once in a while, I'll get you flowers. Yeah, still winter for many of you, I know. I'm going to add 1 drop of Oxide Red to this because it's what I've been using to kind of warm up the skin tone and make it look more weathered. So, like, if you'll look, that's that color there. So we start out with this. But if I wanted a little bit more, like, you know, she's been out in the sun and wind, which she would be as a pirate, then I can add a drop. I actually only added 1 drop of Oxide Red, though, just because I wanted to slide it a little bit, because I'm going to be mixing, like, more yellow into it, as you can see, a little bit yellow and a lot of white. So I don't want to take it too red for this particular start. Let's see here. Where is my... Got all these things all over my... It's like, this is dangerous. I have too many different things all over my table. I did not put it all back together after we were doing metallics on the weekend. Here, get over there. Sit, stay. There, a little bit better. Still feel like I have too much on. Oof. Yeah, that's a lot of wind. Don't blow away, Cornico. You are not allowed to blow away. I mean, Quindy blew away, like, you know, last year, and it took her ages to come back. All right, I'm going to load 2 drops of water into this, which is a little, it's between a 3-to-1 and 4-to-1 paint to water. So I realized that I was kind of getting ahead of myself maybe on my free YouTube videos. I'm going to actually do a step back a little bit, I think, on my painting fundamentals. I was going to do additives, but actually I have a good friend who has just bought her first mini painting set yesterday. She was so excited. So she does it for D&D, so I think she did the WizKids one or whatever, but in talking to her, it like brings me back to, oh, really? Before I even go more than base coat of washes, I have to go like to my top tips for beginners. So I think before I even touch additives, because usually it takes a little while, depending on how many painters you have around you, for you to like hear about things like flow improver and stuff. So I think I'm going to step back and do my top tips for beginners, which I haven't done yet on that channel. Why are we yellow? Stop being yellow. Be correct colored, please. There. All right, and now we need to mix a little bit of highlight. So we've got our nice base skin, and we do want a base skin color for just in case we go a little bit too strong on the highlights. It helps us to have something to glaze over with and bring it back to neutral. So we're going to do that. Battening the bird feeders. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be by bet, Quindy. Yes, there's my YouTube channel. Yes, we have 3 videos out. Beginner fundamentals. We're doing all our fundamentals. Because I want somewhere to direct people when new people ask me, you know, where do I start? I want to just say, here, go to my YouTube channel, watch these videos. That will give you a foundation. Then you could go anywhere else, anybody else on the internets, and listen to their directions and, you know, come to your own conclusions. But at least I know that I'll have something free that can start people out well. All right, now I was using a yellow to build that up. And I think I'm going to use that. And I'm going to use white. So I'm going to use NMM Gold Highlight and white this time. Oh, I used polished, didn't I? Yeah, I did. I think I did use polished leather. When you've got 2 colors, this is where you get into it. When you've got 2 colors that you could use, and then you're like, wait. So I think I was using polished leather, which is a yellow, despite what you may think it looks like. It's the end show. It is the end show. Oh, good, Kraniko. Yes. Yeah, washes, you can do clever things with them. Totally. And I like them over metallics. I like layering stuff. Actually, Kraniko, if you have time to look at on Twitch, on my Twitch YouTube, over at twitch.tv/paintingbig, the video from this weekend, which is in the VOD section, or it should be, that I do colored metallics over steel in a different way. The same kind of way I did on Mr. Grumpy, my old bust. So it's another colored metallics over the top of each other kind of video. Couldn't find the VOD, Olfen Squad. It should be on Twitch. I didn't put it on YouTube. I haven't been putting stuff on YouTube because I want to switch over to doing small, short content. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it should be as a VOD. It should be up as a VOD on my Twitch. Oh, hold on. Oh, my YouTube channel? It's Painting Big, 2 words, Olfen Death Squad. For some reason, when I was setting up my marketing, and Quindy just linked to it actually above. But when I was setting up all my channels, everything else got Painting Big 1 word because that was what, you know, all the like twitch.tv/paintingbig, it's all 1 word. But on YouTube, I'm not cool enough to get my own like named link. So to search for me, you actually have to do it is 2 words, Painting Big. It's kind of dumb, but then YouTube is kind of dumb. But Quindy did the Twitch there, but then up above she actually linked to my YouTube channel. So you can go there and follow me, and then you should find me pretty easy after that. Sorry about that. I wish I could just say I'm youtube.com/paintingbig, but that I'm not cool. I'm not cool enough for that yet, apparently. That's okay. With all you people going to watch my videos, I will get cool enough for that. I actually have had people find my Patreon just from my YouTube, so that's kind of gratifying. And good morning, 8-Bit. How's it going? I'm mixing highlights for the skin here. That went way yellow, so I'm going to swap that over. And just add some white to it. And I should come up with what I am looking for. Oh yeah, that's real close. So pretty much, I know I just added a touch of yellow, and then I added a lot of pure white to build highlights. This went very yellow, probably because I didn't grab too much of this, and I used a whole drop of my polished leather. But that's fine, because when I move it over and I add more white, I actually do get right in the range of that. You see, that's pretty much a perfect match. So that's great. And I just need to add a little bit more white for the highest highlights. And thank you, everybody, for the links. Quindy. Yes, I have a Patreon. It's way cool, and it's been around forever. Well, okay, not forever, just 3 years. But there's a lot of content. Lots and lots of content. Much content. So, Patreon. Oh, no. Yeah, I forget who owns Netflix. Like, at this point, all of the giant, like, conglomerates that own all these different channels, like, I just forget who owns who. I know Google owns YouTube because I give David crap about it all the time because I think YouTube is just, like, not. I do not have a high opinion. How about that? I have a, it's like, it's just like, all these platforms everywhere. So many. Too many. I mean, I have to say that YouTube is useful because I've used it to look up videos on how to do stuff, and that's nice. And there are a few channels that I follow avidly that I really enjoy. But I'm sorry that Korean comedies are now your thing according to Netflix. And I don't do Netflix really. I find TV distracting because I don't watch it too much. So any visual medium, I can't just put it on as background noise like David does. He does that all the time. But I'd rather put on a podcast or listen to music. All right, so we've got a nice setup here. See these nice little progression of colors. And that last one is off. But essentially we made this one. And then we've got these two. I had to take kind of a side road to get these two. But this is our card, shadow to highlight. Yeah, I'm with you, Crowley. I do enjoy podcasts. I can do that. We've been listening to a great one that I know a lot of people knew about prior, but I had not known about it, called Stuff the British Stole. And since I'm kind of a history and archaeology buff, I really enjoy it. It's only got a few episodes. Like he's done 2 seasons, and I think each season is 6 episodes, but it's pretty darn cool. And I found that I can listen to that and paint. And I can do audiobooks. I used to always do music, but when David is home and painting and I want to spend time with him, we both listen to a podcast usually, or an audiobook. Our problem is now that there are so few things that like we both enjoy as far as audiobooks and stuff. Yeah, I used to do that when I was before I worked for Reaper Cornico. My favorites were Tomb Raider and Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring, actually, to be specific. I had seen both of them too many times, and both of them have great soundtracks. That was my prerogative, is it had to have good soundtrack. So there we go. So now we can see the shadow still. We can see that there is a little bit of light carrying over. When we tilt our camera to look, we can see where the light is falling. That's great. And she's looking really good, actually. I just want a little bit more, just a little bit more light. Because I'm starting to see where the sun is falling now, but I just feel like I need a little bit more light. Yeah. You still get sucked in, huh? that's kind of why I stopped, because I do stop to watch the segments of the movie that I like the most. And I just realized that if I put my 80s playlist on or something like that, or my 70s playlist on, I can just like go. All right, so I'm testing this, and it's very, very, it's got a lot. It's making dots. So I have to kind of see if that blends in or not. And it's all right, actually. I think it could use more water, though. So this yellow, this highlight, has a ton of water. Look at it. It's water. Has a ton of water in it, but it's still leaving brush marks. And that's just a testament to when you add pure white to something to build a highlight, or something with a lot of white pigment in it, and off-white can do the same thing because you're still dealing with a color that has a lot of white pigment in it. You need to add a ton of water, a metric ton of water. And I'm probably approaching at least 1 to 2 at this point, paint to water on this, and I may go even more, but you can see the brush strokes there under her eye. Hello, Inara. I did not. David told me about it. He told me it was like coming. I like that it's following Galadriel and the creation of the rings. That sounds really cool. I like Galadriel as a character, so that makes me excited. I also want to see the human kings become ring wraiths. I think that would be awesome. So I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I'm going to glaze with my base tone to take down that those brush strokes there. That's kind of why I always start with mixing my base skin color, because if I do that, I always have a glaze where if I get too many brush strokes or I can see definition lines, I can always go back. So now let's see this. This is the tiniest highlight, this really, really light one. We don't want a lot of it. It's almost a spot. So it's almost like zero paint. Like you can barely see the paint on my brush, and I'm just going to take some of it off. I really only want, and even then I'm getting a little bit of bubble. See that? See that like puddle? When you're working with paint, that's so thin. You need to unload your brush like crazy. And so I'm going to do this again. I'm going to grab a little bit of paint, and I'm just going to clean off that brush. And you don't have to do this step, like, there we go. Like, this is really just bringing in that final bright highlight to really show the light. And I've got it to the point where it's translucent, and I can still use a slight stippling motion, which will create a little bit of a soft focus effect, which is what I want. But it won't be too stark. I do want the upper lip here to get a little bit more. And this is really kind of fine tuning. I'm using a really delicate stroke on this. And this bust has a very cartoony structure, so you really don't need to go this ultra realistic on it. But when you do have a bust that is sculpted more realistically, paying attention to these fine details can be really rewarding. So I want the light really to come. It's going to come on this shelf, and it's going to go down here. This is how the face is structured. You've got that. If you look at your own face, you'll see it. You've got that shelf of a cheekbone, and then you've got, it drops down and the light hits your upper lip. So since the light is coming from this direction diagonally, you're going to get that strong light all the way. You can see all of these surfaces all in a line getting that same highlight. And we don't get that highlight on the jaw because the jaw is actually receding a bit. We can use our previous highlight to bring up a little bit of light on the jaw. If we want to just accentuate it just a little bit more, we can do that. I like to get a little bit of that kind of light going along the jaw, just so the eye kind of follows it back, because the mandible does tend to flare out here, but on this model specifically, if you look at the shape of her face, she has a very heart-shaped face, and the jaw does not protrude. A more masculine face has a jaw that protrudes a bit more. So a squarer face, you'll get more of a highlight. So do pay attention to like the structure of the actual face. And when you've got a face that really like is very elfin on this one that narrows down like this, you're not going to get as much of that jaw highlight, but you're still going to get just a little bit. So I like to put just a tiny bit along that edge. So just these last highlights, these last highest highlights are just so small. They're really just to accentuate tiny areas and really pop them. You would do this on mostly on skin and other areas that are a little bit glossy. It helps to pick out details. Helps to bring in light. Mostly going to keep it toward the end of her nose because she does have that hat. So I have to be careful. I'm going to kind of look at it from above and decide if I need a little bit more. A little bit more here. Do bring it up to the inner corner of the eye. You do want that shadow on the side of the nose, but I might do a glaze here because the light is coming down this way. So I might want a little bit more light on the side of the nose there. Hello, everybody. Hey, Chris. So my paint's already so thin. I might do just a quick glaze. I'm going to grab my brush, wince it out, and then I'm going to grab this glaze and pull it over here. Because it's a light glaze, and I don't mind having that light over this whole area. All this stuff gets very, very subtle, and it is cumulative. Like, the more you build it up, the more... This is how you get these smooth skin tones, guys. This is how you do it. Like, if you ever want to do the super smooth skin tones... This is how you do it with paint, without an airbrush. And it lets you can get smooth skin tones on big busts with airbrushes very easily. It's very, very evident to any painter what you've done, and it's best if you go in and do some brush work afterwards, I find. Because as Lovejoy says, your airbrush is never going to completely replace your paintbrush. What brushwork lets you do that airbrush doesn't let you do is fine precision. Things like the detail of the nostril and around the eyes. I do need a little bit more highlight on that eyelid. So let's go in and do that. So this is like time consuming, but I'm, showing you guys, and I'll do it even more on my new paint along on my Patreon. We've got a bust coming up that we're working on. And she's a very much more realistically sculpted bust. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. I don't expect the paint along people to all do it. Just a little bit of highlight. See that? Really opens up the eye, brings it more up. Got that shadow under the brow still because they're pretty deeply sculpted. I want to hit the ear and I want to hit the chest. And then we're going to move on to the hair. Get a little bit of highlight on the ear just to bring it in line with everything else. I think I want to glaze. I think on this chest here, I really want to glaze. So I'm going to grab my second not my highest highlight, but my second one. And I'm going to throw some more water into it. So it's like more like 4-to-1 or 1-to-4 rather. When you do light glazes, you really have to thin them down because the light paint is so opaque that it will leave brush strokes if you don't. I'm going to try to just glaze a little bit over this whole surface, except for the shadow. And then I grab my highlight. And since my glaze is still wet, I can actually wet blend a little bit by bringing in some of my highlights. Can also kind of keep an eye on where I might have demarcation lines that I might want to fuzz out. I'm going to bring this all, it's looking very realistic now, which I love. We could also have gone just total like anime on this and gone very, very cartoon. This is a bust that you can definitely paint in like a comic book style, and it would lend itself very well to that. But I've got a very realistic looking skin here now, and that's what I was aiming for. Really like it. Just adding in a little more light. And if I get a little bit too stipply, I can throw in a glaze. But yeah, very, very realistic skin tones now. And this was a lot of different colors that went into creating this. So, but yeah, so there we are. Let's get like, hey, quit going yellow. I hate it when it goes yellow. Quit going yellow, camera. There we go. There's the real skin tone. Maybe we need to move that back and pop back in. So you want, again, you want this to be more golden. This area doesn't, it's up against the bone, the breastbone. It has not a lot of blood flow. It's not going to be pink here. So you want to go more golden with your highlight here. Same thing with the forehead. If it was not wrapped, we would be doing that. You get a lot more blood flow showing through the ears and transmitted light along the blush, under the cheeks and around the nostrils and the lips, obviously. We haven't done the lips. Let's do the lips, actually. Let's finish out the face. And then we can move on to the hair. So let us see here. I think I used heraldic red with that. So we're using our base skin tone. We're going to be adding heraldic red. So bring over a couple of, clogged, where's my pokey tool? There it is. All right, there we go. Pokey tool has activated. And we're gonna add 1 drop of red. I like heraldic red because it's got some green in it that neutralizes it. It's not quite as bright. It's still going to give you a fairly intense red though, which is pretty much the red we used. And I always, when I'm working for blush colors or lip colors, I always do this. I always take my main skin tone and I always add red to it. I sometimes add darker reds if I'm working on a more an older face. I'll add a brighter red if I'm working on a very young face where I want very pink lips, or somebody who's going to be wearing lipstick. I tend to like to go more naturalistic, so I tend not to go with artificially red lips unless it's in character. All right, and now I'm going to take that pink and I'm going to bring that over to the side. I'm going to add white to it. So we need highlights. And I still want some of this around in case I screwed up and need to go back to my base color. So this is where I really, another wet place where I really enjoy the well palette over the wet is like, yeah, all your colors are still open on the wet palette, but you'll have to like mix all these different puddles to keep the same color around if you don't want to mix every brushful. There's a highlight. Now we're going to have to thin this a bit. I'm just gonna go, 2. My gut says 2, so I'm gonna listen to my gut. I think that's still gonna be okay. And now I need actually a pure white because lips tend to be moist and they need a white highlight. That's just like the eyes. Hey, and we're working with pink, guys. It's Valentine's Day. Perfect. Perfect. I'm excited. I finished my last 100 days goal journal, and I, finished my goals, and now I get to start a new 100 days goal journal. I laid out all my goals last night. It's all my writing goals. It's exciting. I always love starting a new goal journal. Alrighty. Boop. Got our core pinkish red with the skin tone mixed in with red. Then some of that with white in it, and then pure white. Could also mix kind of a shadowy color if we wanted to. But at this point, I'm not gonna. I'm actually gonna go for the highlights, see what I can do. Now I'm gonna see if I thinned my pink too much, because lips need a little bit of texture. No, actually, that's about perfect. So I'm going to get close. This is really subtle, but the key is to start it and then build it up. Let's see, that's too close. It's not. Yeah, you can see those. So it's throwing off the color, but you can see those little strokes of lines. And your lip has creases as well. So that's what we're aiming for. And I start very subtle, and then you work them up. And of course, you're seeing this blown up huge on your monitor, where in reality, all of the details are quite small. I do see a speck of paint that I got on there, though. I'm going to take off a hair or a lint or something, which is not a big deal because I do have my base coat at hand, so I can touch it up. It's another peril of big models is that lint will get everywhere because you have so much space. The lint is like, I will run and play in this giant field of paint. So you will get particles on your model. All right, so I think this pink is about right, and I'm going to utilize it to just kind of dab in. Very subtle. You want subtle here because if you don't have subtle, you're going to have stripes, and nobody wants stripy lips. It's probably a sign of disease. So you want just a bit of suggestion of texture, and you don't necessarily like, you can kind of stick a couple of these together. Like you see a couple of bigger blobs there now. I don't want necessarily a bunch of stripes. I want like some spaces that are maybe, spread out and some that are close together, some wrinkles that are bunched and other wrinkles that are farther apart. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my white and I'm going to mix it into this pink. And I'm going to use that. Let's see how much paint I have on my brush. Yeah, it's not bad. A little bit off. The only time I ever paint on my hand is if I'm unloading a little bit on my fingernail because I'm working with paint that is so freaking thin. And now I'm kind of going over the top of what I already did, but keeping the highlights smaller. Got that highlight coming in on the lips. I think I do want actually just a little bit more dark color. So I'm going to actually grab a drop of heraldic red and a big brush full of my skin base. And then I'm going to grab void blue and add just a tiny bit of it because I want to make a shadow here. I need it to be dark, but I need it to be desaturated. So I'm adding a little bit of blue, and I probably need a little bit of green too, because you're desaturating. I'm gonna mix the blue in and see where it goes. That's actually pretty good. That's kind of a bruisey purple. So I'm mixing skin tone with the heraldic red, same way I did for the lip base color over here, but then I'm throwing a little bit of void blue into it. Void blue being a good general shader, I'm getting this kind of a bruisey dark pink. If I wanted to neutralize it more, I could add green because green is a complementary color to red and it would be more effective that way. But here's about where I think I'm going to stay. And we're going to try this. I want essentially a fill color for this. She's got her lips parted here. I need a shadow there. There's definitely a dip sculpted there where it goes back into her mouth. and I want to accentuate that that is dark. It's also going to accentuate the shape of her lips there, see? Pay attention to these details. It's easy to base coat something and not pay attention to the subtleties of the sculpt, but there we have a definite, like, her lips are definitely parted, and so I wanted a darker shadow. But I don't want super dark shadow. I can always also use this dark pink to further solidify the upper lip, the underside, which is going to be in shadow. And often you don't even need a liner at that point. If your colors have been chosen well, you get the effect. So that's drying. We'll let that dry. I'm going to put a little bit of this shadow color down here. Actually, I think I'm going to thin it a little bit. I kept it thick there because I needed it to be solid where I put it in that dip between the lips. But now I need it to go a little bit more transparent if I'm going to use it to kind of suggest the bottom curve on that lip. Yeah, I think everybody's either working or watching. This is all advanced stuff. I don't normally do stuff that's this advanced on this stream, but every once in a while, you know. So I'm going to just layer a little bit of this purpley color around the bottom of this pink. It's not going to be really strong, but it's going to, see how it creates more volume over here that I made that purple shadow, whereas here it looks very flat. So there you go. And then I'm going to take this entire purple shadow and I'm actually going to pop it all, like a lot of it on this side of the mouth. Because shadow, remember? So this side of her lip should be darker. And we won't see those highlights come up as much. And it's going to be colder too, so that's why I'm using the purple. I'm just doing normal lip color. I don't do lip gloss. But I am going to pop the highlights up on the other side. So we'll darken down this side, make it more cool like everything else over here is. There. All right, now we're going to take some white. We're going to pop the highlight. Now, if you decide that these lips are too pink, by the way, all you need to do is thin down your skin color and just glaze it over the top. It'll knock the pink a little bit more subtle. You'll have to redo your highlights at that point, but it'll take it more toward the skin tone. Because we definitely do have a little bit of the candy pink going on right now, but I don't mind that. Her eyes are so bright blue. And this bust has enough cartoony in her that I don't feel like I need to go ultra real. A little bit of bright there, bright there. Just a little bit of extra highlighting there. I feel like I want a little bit more. Oh, a little bit too much there. What if we take our brush and we clean it out? We can scuff away at that a little. I wanted a little bit more of a roundness. That went a little bit too much, so that's okay. We can knock that back. That's why we keep our base coat around. That if we go too harsh, that's better. And I want a little bit darker of a shadow on this side, I think. The lip is sculpted a bit puffier on this side. Just a tiny bit. It's really coming out, so I think I'm going to shape it. So to shape it, I'm going to grab a little bit more. I want blue and brown. Where's my void blue? I'm going to mix void blue and black and brown. We were doing pink because Valentine's Day. but I'm going to do a drop of black and brown. I'm going to bring in a brush full of skin tone. Always, always, I'm going to be mixing in this skin tone. Whenever I'm doing something that's affiliated with the skin, like the lips, even when I'm doing a color that's totally for shading and totally weird and totally not, you know, like, it's weird, but I'm going to mix this skin tone to everything. Like, that's why I made a bunch of it. So it's in everything, but I want a darker, let's get back actually. I'm just going to kind of pop out here so we can see some colors. All right, so I've got my blue and brown up here. You can see our range that we're working with. I'm going to pop some water into that. And I'm going to pop a big brush full of this skin color into this. I'm probably going to have to add some red. So I'm going to just grab from my purple. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to actually grab from my heraldic red. And the reason this is going green is because the skin tone is so yellow, so golden, and the blue has a lot of blue pigment in it, that void blue. So if you see your shadow color going green and you don't want it, pop some red into it. It'll neutral it out into a brown. You can decide if you want it to go more blue at that point. It's up to you. I'm probably going to mix it with this purple, so I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to utilize this. But I noticed my underlip shadow needs some adjusting, so I'm going to do that. So we're going to be using these two colors kind of mixed together. This is very kind of muted out brown. Very similar to the brown that's on the side of her face to shade down with. But there's always a shadow underneath the lip. And I didn't get it quite solid on this side. So I'm adjusting that. And now I'm also going to take this shadow color, because this lip is a little bit more puffy. I'm actually going to paint plastic surgery this lip to be not quite so puffy by using this shadow color as kind of a liner to cut the shape of the lip into more like the other side. And you can do this sort of adjustment, like if you see, like if you have lips that are very puffy that you want to be thinner, you can absolutely kind of introduce a bit of a line or a pronounced shadow to trim those lips back. There's a limit to what you can do before you actually have to kind of resculpt. But I like that. I don't want her to have huge puffy model lips, so. And again, when I'm over here working in the light, I'm mixing that purple in to this. Now I'm getting a little bit too cartoony. See how putting that lining in really suddenly pops this face into more of a cartoon zone. Like I said before, she looks like a Pixar character to me when I look at her on camera. She very much has that feel because she's her sculpt is more like a 28mm that's been blown up rather than a really naturalistic face. I don't have Dragon Lady in here anymore. I don't have my beast bust, so I can't do a direct comparison without opening something else. But it means that if you do go lining anywhere, you're instantly going to see that cartooniness pop out at you. Really, really look. It's really going to look cartoony. So then you have to question, it's like, okay, do I want that? If not, I can knock it back a little bit by adding my pink. It's kind of this constant battle where I don't want this lip puffy, and so I need to do something with shading. But at the same time, I don't want to go too cartoony. I almost liked the cartoony a little better, though, with a less pronounced lip. So I like the size of it, Julie. Yeah, it's let's hear. Hold on. Let's grab out a competitor and just not promote our competitor. So this is, let's look at this bust. This is the bust I'm doing for my Patreon paint along. And let me grab her out. This is actually smaller, interesting, because she's bigger because she's a whole torso. But I do like the size of this bust, Julie. I think it's closer to 1/10. I don't have a 1/10 bust like hanging out, so I can't say. But this is a slightly smaller. I would say this bust is 1/12. But you can see the sculpt is a little bit different on the eyes as far as positioning, and it's a little bit different. It is still, I think she's still a little bit cartoony because she's an elf, but this other one. But see how the lips are a little more subtle on this sculpt, for example. The mouth is a little less accentuated. Stuff like that. But yeah, this is more like a 1/10. I think 1/10 is very standard. Oh, D. Clearman. Because paint, all the paint, the collector steps in. The collector. We'll just call him this from now on. Alrighty. I'm just like looking at this, and once again, I'm trying to judge whether I like the mouth. I think I've got it kind of where I want it. I've got a little bit of a shadow to it. There's still that tight tuck up, but that's just the sculpt. What I can do, I'm going to try something. I'm going to grab my base skin color and kind of bring it in there and de-emphasize this line with skin, not with blush. Kind of blend it in a little bit. Maybe that will also help. It helps a little bit. It's still sculpted to be very puffy, but at least that helps there. She just has very puffy lips. Jean likes puffy lips. This is what I'm learning. That's about right, though. You'll happily accept that name. Ah, Heartbreak Red. All right, so I don't know what it is. So, oh, wait, let me look. Here, Quindy has linked us to a thing. Looking. I don't care about features, Discord. Oh, I don't have my Discord in this thing, so I can't see it. Oh, well. Oh, well, I'm just going to assume it's red. There comes a point, people, when all reds are red. And it doesn't really matter which one you grab for. I'm going to grab my white. Speaking of grabbing things. Bring in a little bit more light on this side, which accentuates the shadow on the other side. Desaturated darker red. All right. Because it's Heartbreak. It can be all moody. All emo. It's emo red. They should have named it emo red. Ah, the opportunity's lost. Oh, dear. But I guess it depends on how dark it is. Right. Oh, okay. They heard me harping on Asmodeus Red, and they decided that Reaper needed a piece of that action. Reaper needed a color that was like close to that. All right, there we go. So now we've got light. Now I'm going to test. Test. Must always test. Must produce hat. Produce hat and zoom out so that my yellow camera goes away from being yellow, please. How about we do that? All right, come on, camera. Like, seriously, come back in. Quit being yellow. Oh, I hate you, camera. Much camera hate. All right. Well, I'm not there, so unless somebody watches, argh, get shifted yellow again, I hate you. I hate you, camera. Makes me make sad noises. All right, let's try this. All right, it's better. Is this reading right? I think this is reading right at this point. When I look at it, kind of looking at it in the light up here. Got all of it. I think it's good for now. And now it's hair time. Except that I should have apparently kept that palette in frame so that it can, like, not go yellow. Because it does not like the yellow. It does not like it. It does not want to show its red tones today. It's like, no, I don't want to stay on the actual skin color. I want to go yellow. Here we go. Sit and stay. And let's get some brown. Let's get some browns. So I heard, pretty much, brunette that doesn't go to blonde. But let's face it, guys, when you've got brown hair, your highlights are going to be golden. So the key to not having your brown hair go to blonde is to limit your highlights. Like, make your highlights smaller. Or you can use a kind of a dishwater blonde. But let me see. Let me go to brunette. Let's look for some hair color. Let's look at images. There are a lot of different brunettes in the world. Like, that one's kind of pretty. It goes up toward golden, but it actually has some more reddish hues in it. And some of the highlights here, you can see the natural highlights or the fluorescent highlights are very, very white. And that's kind of key there. But there are definite blonde streaks in this hair as well. Let's see here. That one is a bit more of a muted brunette. It's less red than the other one. It also does go up though. And this is just this is what happens to brunette hair in light. I mean, this is artificial, obviously, but it's there for a reason. So I'm gonna look down. Brown hair color chart. That could be useful, guys. So technically, it went away. I do hate my phone sometimes when it doesn't want to. I'm just going to visit. Hold on. Oh, it's on Pinterest. Pinterest, shut up. I don't care. There we go. And let's get a black base in here to see if it helps to see it. So we've got like golden brown. We've got a dark chocolate color that apparently only shows up with olive skin. Yeah, so you're going to pretty much go reddish. Reddish or goldish, or you can mute it out. Yeah, but I had a specific request, Pendrake, not to go up to blonde with this. So, Pinterest is annoying. Have I mentioned that Pinterest is annoying? But yeah, like there's a lot of red tones in some of these. Let's see, what do I want to do? We also have to think about her skin tone. I kind of like that dark brown copper. That's kind of neat. It's more of a neutral brown. If I was going to start it, I'd probably go russet and then bring it up. We could do a clever thing and bring in our Griffin Golden brown, but we want to bleach it out and not make it go too gold. So I'm debating how to do this hair color. But it does go with the actual, like this hair color is, it's correct. It's like a fairer or medium or peachy skin is what usually this hair color is paired with. And also blue eyes commonly. So I think maybe a shield brown to neutral out some things. Shield brown will neutral it out. But I still want a little bit of warmth for highlights. So I think this and... Most people go very intense with their, I think this an Osirian maybe. Yeah, let's try this. And I'm just going to use a touch of the golden brown. However, using one of the colors in the hair that is in the skin, the Griffin Golden Brown here, will help to make the two align. Should pull them together and make them look like they belong together. So these are the progressions that I'm kind of thinking of. She's this is a 1/10 scale. She's smaller than Mr. Grumpy, who is like almost a 1/6, 1/8, and she's bigger than that than the Big Child Bust, which is definitely a 1/12. I've painted 1/12 before. Sacrifice is a 1/12. So, I mean, I don't know if Jean or if anybody set out to make her 1/10 scale. They probably set out to make her close, and so 1/10 is what I'd call her. Alrighty, so I think I've got my hair color. I do need shadows for it, and I'm gonna want a liner for that. Brown liner or rogue liner will do. You want a liner because you want something that's more muted. You don't want to use something like black and brown, which is more my usual brunette. My usual brunette, I go with more reddish, more rich colors. And it definitely does go up to kind of a golden blonde. But here, since I got a request to not take it that way, hey, Egomorph or Legomorph. Thank you. 4 months. Wow. Hello. I don't think I've seen you in chat before. So I'm gonna use Rogue Shadow. My brown liner's in the other room, so Rogue Shadow is kind of my sit-in for that. So something very dark and that I can thin down that's not going to be too saturated. Russet Brown is actually quite vibrant, but Shield isn't, so I'm going to be mixing these guys together, the Russet and the Shield, and then I'm going to be going up from there. So this is kind of a complex recipe, but this dark brown copper hair color that I'm looking at definitely has a muted element to it. I'm not going as red as this image is. But it's more of a neutral hair tone. It's not quite as dark as the cocoa. There's a cocoa color that's even more kind of like what we're looking at here. So it's kind of between those two. But yeah, let's just look up brunette hair colors until you come up with a picture or something that you can kind of work off of. So let me take a quick 1 second. I wish Pinterest would stop like throwing up its little happy little thing. I keep trying to get a screenshot of this and Pinterest fights me because it's like, no, you must be Pinterest. You must be here. You must not ever do this. I will not allow you to take this photo. Will not allow you to screenshot. I mean, you must be on my platform. That's Pinterest pretty much. I'm actually going to take a couple of these off the sides. There. Done. Save. Haha, I've thwarted you, Pinterest. 1 second while I get that over and show you guys what I'm looking at. Alrighty. Let's see if I can get this to look right. So looking at, yeah, it's too dark on screen, sadly. Let's see if I can get this off of there. If I can get this to read, it would be nice, but sadly my camera, sometimes the white balance on cameras. So I'm looking at this dark cocoa color and at this dark brown copper, which you can see is just a little bit more reddish. But those are the two colors that I'm looking at matching here. Probably more toward the cocoa, but we'll see. We'll see. Hey, Chromatic. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I know I've been doing this for a long time. Glad you enjoy it, Chromatic. Depending on where you are in your painting journey, I have my own YouTube and I'm also doing just little informative videos for fundamentals of mini painting. So I only have a few up right now though. So eventually you could go look over there too. And then you would get more me. But yeah, it's nice to meet you. Cool. Glad you're enjoying it. Yes, Pinterest thwarting. I enjoy thwarting Pinterest. So we're using a lot, since we're working on so much today, we are using up a lot of wells on our well palette. I'm going to actually turn it so that I can get a whole new selection of happy wells here. I'm going to try starting with about a 50-50 of russet brown and shield brown. And shield brown is a very kind of muted out brown. Earth brown would be another good color to use for this, actually. Earth brown 9029. But I don't have that immediately to hand, so I'm going to go for shield. Oh, need to mix that a little bit better. Thank you for the YouTube link, Quindy. But yeah, I'm really super glad you're enjoying it, Chromatic. It is quite the trove, and I cover a lot of different topics. And if you watch all those videos, like you'll be one of those people from Paint Club who have my voice endlessly playing on loops in their heads, saying more highlights and things like that. Thin your paint. Alrighty. The voice of Anne becomes a permanent fixture in the back of your painting head. All right, there we go. Let's get some water in this. See what it comes out to. I'm looking kind of for a, yeah, see russet brown is very intense. Very, very intense. And so I'm going to actually add a little bit more shield to bring it down. Ah, yeah. Wow, you paint that much then, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and of course, with a name like Chromatic Miniatures, you were probably a studio painter, huh? Or you do it for a living. So, you were not a beginner. But I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad you enjoy the paints, because that's kind of, I feel like Master Series, that's perfect. Okay, this is a good color. I muted out that russet brown, but still kept a lot of the depth to it. So I think I'm going to try this. Yeah, there we go. But yes, I always feel like Master Series paint is kind of like the thing I gave to the hobby that I've been a part of for so very long. So when painters who I haven't met before like love the paint, it just means a lot to me. It means I did good. It means I did good. Yeah. And it's not super vibrant. I can mute it down or bring it up any way I want. So that's about a 2-to-1, I want to say, shield brown to russet brown. It's a rich color. And I don't so much want to even keep my zenith here. Like, there's no point. Because zenith does not, like, really give you much information on hair, in my opinion. Because hair highlights in a completely different way. So the zenith is nice for other things, but for the hair, I'm not gonna care much here. Let's actually move this out of frame a little bit. And get that there. Now you can see the hair. So that's a nice, rich, lighter color, but we are going to bring in our Rogue Shadow liner, and we are going to darken it down a bit. But I like this color. This is a good color. So if you like this hair color, make a note. It's like 2-to-1, shield brown 9161, and russet brown 9199. There we are. Been waiting a very long time to do a bust on this stream. There we go. Mostly fantasy for TTRPGs. Oh, yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's cool. I haven't had a D&D game in a long time. We played a little one. We made a little one for Twitch, but then like everything else got very very busy in my life, so I was like, okay, I have to cut back. It was very nice during the pandemic to have an online little game, though. So if that's what you paint for a living, Chromatic, what do you like to paint for yourself? Or are you stuck in the horrible self-employment I don't have time to paint for myself cycle that I was in for so many years? So if I did want to reference the zenith as far as where the light is going to be hitting the hair, I can still utilize everything around here, because just by looking around this strand of hair, I can see it's surrounded by black, which means that it is in shadow. So I'll be careful when I go in here and highlight it. And I'll keep it in mind for shading as well. And then we've got this beautiful braid of hair on the back. Actually, I'm going to switch to a bigger brush. This is a big mass of hair, and I can totally switch to a bigger brush. In fact, I could switch to a gigantic brush. Shall we switch to a gigantic brush? Yes, I'm using a gigantic flat Taklon. Get used to it, folks. Get used to it. Lets me cover more surface. And because this paint is so high coverage, I don't have to worry about scraping the paint over the surface. And also using the edges, it's very nice to get inside of these braids. It's just a Master's Touch shader. Size 8. These are at Hobby Lobby. Master's Touch does a fairly decent line of synthetics. I like flats for terrain painting. I had this one just kind of hanging around. But they're very good for doing big flat areas on larger models. They're good for painting things like dragons. Let you put a nice even coat of color over big scales and stuff, areas of scales. And since this one is still in pretty good shape and I haven't abused it, it keeps a nice chisel, and I can hit smaller areas with the edges and tip. Yep, that's what I typically do in Aura. You're exactly right. You like dragons and weird monsters. Okay, cool. Yeah, right. Right, yeah. Got it. Totally. Yeah, I used to paint for eBay and stuff, so I get it. Although I would often do, back in those days, I was still trying to get better at a lot of techniques. So on each of my more basic models, I would try to do like some more complicated thing. But yeah, it depends on how much money your clients are willing to pay, of course. So most of them just want a well-painted, a decently painted tabletop mini, so I imagine. All right, so that's a beautiful brown color. I like this. So remember, this is just our base brown color. We are going to actually shade it down quite a bit, and we're going to highlight it up quite a bit. But I do like the color. And I'm just going to kind of use the edge. You can see this brush does have still a pretty good edge, so it is, I can still use it to paint little things like this. It's Griffin Golden Brown, but I haven't used it at all. But this is what we used Copper Hand on the skin tone as well. It's the skin tone is this color in tan skin. It is a fast palette color. It's in the Adventure Colors set, I believe. So it's part of a set of 6. That's why it's got the 291 prefix or 29 prefix. So fast palette Adventure Colors, which also has some other beautiful colors in it. A lot of the fast palettes have some very useful, nice colors in them. But this starting color is just normal shield brown and russet brown. And you don't really have to go up with Griffin Golden Brown. There are many other colors you could use. If I don't want if I want to retain like lesser, if I want to mute out this color and not keep it quite so rich, I would not use this color. I would probably just start coming up with this, maybe with a little bit of yellow added, or orange. Or a more muted tan, like leather brown would work. But I like this color, and since we used it in our skin tone, I was thinking I would use it for highlights as well. Yeah, no problem. I think this hair color also works beautifully with her skin tone. It looks good with the skin tone, so I think we picked a good one. That can happen where your skin color and your hair color can totally be at odds, since we're just arbitrarily choosing them. We're not necessarily like thinking about what genetically would happen. So we've got that. I'm going to put a little bit more here and here. And this paint is so opaque that you really even can't see the effect of the zenith on it. And this is where, like, a lot of people don't talk about, you know, they tell you to use zenith, but they don't bring up the fact that you're going to lose a lot of it, if not all of it, unless you're painting with really thin paint over sketch. So if you are, like, thinking you're going to try zenith priming, or you're trying to sketch style or something like that, where you're doing a white-black underpainting, remember that in order for that to work and stick around to help you, you need to have a paint that's actually quite thinner, or you'll start covering it up pretty fast. So the other thing is you can paint, and I could have maybe wet blended and kept some of these highlights marked by highlights while I was putting on this base coat. But otherwise, oh, missed a spot. It's a smaller spot, so I'm going to switch back to my other brush. But yeah, zenith is useful if you do, like I did on the orc bust I'm painting on the weekends on my own channel. I took zenith highlights pictures so that I could refer to them later, so I would always remember where my shadows and highlights were supposed to be, since I knew I was going to cover up my zenith. Or you can paint with thinner paint. Or you can wet blend your base coat and make sure you wet blend accordingly to what your zenith is telling you. There's lots of ways to use it, but remember, it's easy to cover it over. I can see some darker areas, like I can see that was over black primer, but alrighty, I think I've got all my hair spots. So maybe a little one right there. Yeah, that's where her little scarf comes out. That socket's in right there. But we have it removed right now just because it'll get in the way. Still thought I would stick it there for you guys so that you could see it. Got a little bit of grit in there. Whenever you see a little speck of lint or grit or something that got in your paint, it's much easier to deal with it early in the process. So I just usually take my knife, because I just base coated, so it's not like I can't reapply part of my base coat. There. And I can't tell what that is. I feel like this is also hair. Like part of this is collar, but I think that's hair. Look closely. Make sure you look past other details and into the cracks. It's easy to miss that, like this area and this little strand down here should also be hair color. Bunny fur. I would always get dog hair, and now I just get me hair. And regular old lint. There. All right. I think now that was it. So that's our hair color starting out. And I am going to get some brown liner or rogue shadow together to start doing, I'm marking in where my shades are. And just like with everything else that I tend to do, come on, why are you all yellow? Silly thing. There it is. I don't know why this bust throws my colors off so bad. I think that maybe I just need to put more blue or something. I need more colors on her so that her colors read better. But we're going to use rogue shadow here. We could also use brown liner. I'm just going to thin it up. But just like with other things that I do, I tend to do a base coat and then I tend to shade. And then I tend to work up my highlights from that. I find it useful to block in my shadows to really get a sense of the volumes of shapes and also where the light is falling. I'll put my flat brush away here. Go sit. All right, so this is a very, very dark color. You can see it's near black. It's a little reddish purplish. It'll be a good shadow for this. I am going to thin it 1 to 1, which might be too much. We'll find out. Rogue Shadow is a little higher coverage than brown liner. So this may be a little bit too... It'll be a good layering consistency, but all right, so this is about that consistency. You can see that. That's all right. I'll have to build it up if I want my shadows to get dark, so I might want to strengthen it just a little bit. It really depends on if I want to build up layers or if I want to kind of wet blend these two. If I want to wet blend these two, then I need this to be stronger. I think I'm going to want one more drop in there. That's what I think. My gut says I want to see some drama, so I want a little bit stronger. So that'll be 4 drops of paint, 3 drops of water. It almost never like affects other models, but I don't find I need anything like that, Pendrake. I mean, it probably would be enough just to have a couple other colors in frame. That would probably work right there. Like if I always keep red and blue in frame, it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna shift toward yellow. It's just that almost everything on the model at this point is very yellowy. But I find that getting like specialized little color strips kind of overthinks it. You don't really need it. All right, I'm gonna slide this a little bit out of frame. And we're going to start shading. And I think I really want the hat here. All right, so if I look at it in the light from the appropriate direction, this is very much in highlight. So all this is getting light. All of it is. Even down to there, because that's on the chest, except for the part that's right up against the ruff on her neck, her sleeve, her shirt. Everything over here is dark. Ah! My hat flew off. Boop. On the back side, just like the zenith, you can see some of the braids starting about here is when the braids start to pick up light. And then this one is going to be more in the shadow. And this is going to be more in the shadow. By the way, my $10 thing this month for Patreon, I've decided is actually going to be how to paint braids. Woohoo! This is a very chunky, big braid, so it's not quite as difficult, but I'm going to be doing 28mm. All right, just touching up some areas I see that did not get base coat. I find that 28mm braids are a lot harder for people to grasp than the big stuff because you would have so little room. Alrighty, so shadows on this part really are just going to be like, it's going to be down here. And I don't mind if I can really see the brush marks on this. I actually kind of want to see my shadows come up pretty strong. So it's going to get darker here because it kind of bulges out here. There's going to be a little bit of shadow underneath the kerchief up here because it's overhanging. Hair highlights in a bell curve. So shadow, gradually up to highlight, gradually down to shadow. It doesn't have a sharp cutoff like NMM does because hair is translucent, metal is not. Not unless you're dealing with very, very thin sheets of metal. And that would be an entirely different subject. Now you can introduce some shadows in between some of these strands, but be careful about it. Like I said, hair is translucent. That means that you're not going to get hard shadows between a lot of these individual locks. Turns out you have it, Copper. That's funny. But adding in more of the shadow has made this color a little bit less vibrant, just as I was mentioning. So I'll take my midtone and I'll bring it back. The nice thing about putting in these just rough shadows is then you take your midtone and you just kind of bring it and combine the two, paint over it a little bit, and it should work just fine. Now, if you do have a deeper strand like this one, you can consider putting shadow down that entire one right here that I just did. Don't make it super dark though, but it can serve to kind of break up a big area like this that's big and flat, to identify a couple of areas where the strands are where the locks are bigger and thicker, and to shadow those a little bit more pronouncedly. So I did one back here by the ear, and I did one right here. But again, not too dark. Now remember, the more area you take up with shadow, that's going to shift her overall hair color darker, because you're covering up a lot of that initial color that we used to lay down her hair color. So if you do want a darker brunette out of this, and you want it to be less of a vibrant, like golden brown, then mute it out a little bit. You can add more shadow. The more area your shadow color tints, essentially, or shades, the less rich the coloring will look on this. It does compared to other busts I've done, Ulfin. I mean, I'm doing a very realistic paint style on it, but the sculpt is still somewhat cartoony. The sculpt is a lot more like a 28, and a lot less like a really realistic... Oh, I have to keep these in. I have my satyr girl in the other room, but, actually, I'll grab it. Hold on. 1 second. We're almost at the end of the stream anyway, so I'll grab the bust and try to talk about what I mean. All right, so I think you can really see the difference here on the way these are sculpted. The one on the left is a very, very realistic sculpt from Ignis Art. The one on the right is the Reaper sculpt for ReaperCon last year, the Angelica Fairweather bust, which is not currently in print, but we're hoping they'll bring it back at some point, maybe in the next Bones Kickstarter. Hint, hint, Ron and Ed, please bring it back. Yeah, it was a ReaperCon swag item. A lot of people had it, and I wanted to do a bust to kind of demonstrate the techniques to use on a bust. So, but the one on here, this is a really realistic sculpt. And this one is a much more stylistic sculpt. So when I look at this, I see like a Pixar character. I think it's actually a pretty cool effect. When you paint it realistically, you can get that very, like, that kind of thing. Oh, yes, this is a more graphic novel. Right, exactly. You could paint this in comic book style and really embrace the cartoon aspect, and it would rock. Like, I have an extra one. I'm tempted to paint it in comic book just to show you guys the difference, because it would be very different feel than painting it naturalistically. But you can see that it's and actually this is 1/10 then, the Angelica Fairweather, because this beast bust right here is also 1/10. You can see that the scale is the same. Very different the way it's sculpted, right? But the scale is the same. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about like a more realistic sculpt versus a more cartoony sculpt. I think that Ignis does some of the best realistic female faces in the biz. And both are fun to paint. It's like this one actually gives you a lot more room to work on eyes. The eyes are a lot larger in this. That's one thing that makes it look more like a Pixar character, like a character in an animated film. The mouth is a little bit more accentuated. Noses are similar, but the features in general are bolder and more pronounced in this bust. Uh-oh. Well, then it's good that we're done. Right? We got our hair kind of like figured out. I know what I'm using for my shadow, so I'll make a note of it. Actually, I'll make a note of it right now. Remember that when you're not sure what you're doing, you should totally make a note of what you're doing so that you can repeat it. So hair is 2 to 1, 9161 to 9199. And then I'm going to use Griffin, Osirian, and I'm using Rogue Shadows. Rogue Shadow for shading. That will let us... Yeah, so I consider this a more cartoony sculpting style, but I think that it's really fun, and I really like the kind of... It gives a certain like crisp, cool finish. Like because the detail's so exaggerated, you can get a really striking, pronounced like style from it that is harder to pull off with a really realistically sculpted bust, where you really feel like you're kind of pulled toward realism or dramatic. You can go dramatic stylistic on it. A lot of people do. Very high impact paint styles out there do it, but I love this is cool. This is giving me a cool effect. So I still remember the number. But yeah, so overall, I'm very happy with how this is coming out. Eventually, we'll have to figure out what colors we're going to use on her. She definitely wants something bright primary. She wants red or blue, or she wants... we could go green, but it's such an unpopular pirate color. It was such an unpopular color. Green or purple. I would not go yellow or orange, because we've already got orange in her skin tones. So we'll have to think of what kind of color we want to throw on her. Her shirt collar and her frill is definitely going to be a creamy white. Maybe we'll even try to do a lace pattern on it and see if we can pull it off. We'll see. This is wide open at this point. So, and I really, while I'm here, should be, yeah, it's exactly actually time to end. But what I can do, one thing I can do real quick, is I'm going to grab this Rogue Shadow, and I'm actually going to paint a thin layer of it. I thinned it a little bit with water, but I'm going to paint a thin layer of it over this entire side of her face, because it's all in shadow. I'm going to take it down just that extra notch. And then I probably will also glaze that void blue over it to cool it down. So I'm going to take off all the excess from this glaze. Don't want to leave it pooling, or it will dry funny. See bubbles, blow on them, break them. See extra pools, just kind of pull them off. I just wanted to tint this darker on this side right off the bat. And then we can work with it even more in future streams. There. Perfect. So that's got a darker shade on it now. And that'll dry, and then we can work with it. And definitely sets up the same kind of shadow thing we've gotten over here. A lot of light on this side, a lot of shadow on this side. But yeah, so that's what we got, guys. We started on the hair today, started shading, put on our mid-tone, which is this color, and then started shading it here. We finished up the skin. We finished her mouth, at least a soft finish. I always go to a point where I feel like it looks pretty good, and then I finish the rest of the model, and then I'll go back and tune anything that I feel like needs a little bit more punch. So what I call this is a soft finish. And then once we get a lot closer to done, I'm going to be seeing things. I'm like, oh, well, this needs another highlight. This needs a little bit more shading. This isn't quite right with lighting. And then I'll go and adjust. But yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. That is what we did today. And tomorrow's show, We only have a tiny bit left. We started doing freehand on our Darius the Blue. So we just have to paint his base, and we need to address some little pink parts. Need to shade and highlight some pink parts on Ratty here. Then we need to finish the freehand that we mapped out last time. And we'll be done with this guy. Like, he'll be set. He'll be set to go to Ron or to hang out and wait for us to do the Dragon Cat in the Tree to be his nemesis next year. I might hang on to him for that. Who knows? But thank you all. So this is where we're going tomorrow. I hope you had a lot of fun today. Happy Valentine's Day for those who came in later, or happy just, like appreciation for all of you who watch my stream day. Let's just call it that. Less loaded than Valentine's Day, right? And I hope you all have a fantastic one. All right, Quindy, thank you so much for your help as always. And, 3 p.m.? Oh, 2 p.m. Okay, and go give Rhonda love later today. Yes. All right, everybody. Bye.